Hello, this is Robert Rodriguez, and this is the 15-minute Flick School, Sin City. At the end of 2003, when I got the idea to make this movie, I had already finished doing several sequels, where I had used those as a very safe place to learn about lighting and digital photography and coming up with new ways to do special effects, becoming my own production designer. And so for my next project, I was looking for something that would really challenge me in those areas, something to push me in a new direction. So I was thumbing through my old collection of Sin City books. I realized we could do this now with cinema, using all the tricks I'd been learning over the years. The simplicity of Frank's images also offered the biggest advantage. I could control the budget. Because if ever we ran out of money, I could simply put in a very dark background, and we'd still be faithful to the book. However, that's not what happened. Friendly competition set in, which is always a great thing in a lower budget movie, getting the different effects houses pitted against each other to see who would make the best story. And everyone went beyond all that they were required to do and delivered images that were incredibly stunning and a lot of times realistic when they didn't need to be. On my first test, I took some of the more difficult ideas to see if they would fly. White silhouettes, very blown out backgrounds, faces in shadow, you still see their eyes. Things that were stylistic signatures of Frank's books I wanted to try to pull off in these first tests, because I knew if we could do those, then everything else that wasn't as dramatic or showy would still work. That led us to shooting the opening scene, which was done as a test to kind of try out these more realistic backgrounds. So Josh Hartnett, Marley Shelton came down for a day and we shot them on the green screen. I then worked out these images over a period of about a week and a half with my effects team there at Troublemaker Digital. So this allowed us to put in very simple yet expanded backgrounds from the original books, which would fall somewhere between a stylized reality in the books that Frank had drawn. So a background like this in the book would look like this in the movie. A little more finished out and with a tonality that would match the skin tones. Sometimes we'd go more 2D altogether, depending on the shot and which story we were in. For instance, like in The Yellow Bastard, that's the most sparse in the movie because that's how the book was drawn as well. So one of the things I tried to figure out early on was the bandages, Mickey Rourke's bandages. That's sort of something that's applied not only to his look, but to any kind of blood that is white or anytime you have something that's supposed to be dark, again, in a shadow and you want to see it. So we tried this fluorescent tape method. By shining a blue light on the orange tape, it would glow even in the shadow area. So we can then take that and in post, make it white. And we did that with blood. We did that with Hartigan's tie. The Hartigan scar, we would use fluorescent makeup on his head so that when you'd hit it with a blue light, it would shine. We'd be able to pull a matte from it and turn it white later and control how much white we put in that shadow area. Another trick that Frank uses in his book that you can't really do photographically is he gives everything an edge. This sort of realization early on convinced me that we'd have to make the movie in green screen. The only way we'd be able to isolate actors from their backgrounds and a lot of times from each other was to shoot on green screen, because then we could put lights anywhere, give them the edge that's needed when you shoot black and white. Because when you're shooting in color, color helps separate images from each other. But when you shoot in black and white, people will just tend to blend into their backgrounds or into each other. If you look at any other black and white movie, they're really more gray and white movies. They don't have as much black as we do. I like that style in Frank's book, and I wanted to do that in the movie, so we separated everybody and chose their costumes very carefully, and would use layering in order to separate people from the backgrounds. So when you have someone running through a forest, this would be impossible to keep a constant edge light on them to separate them from the trees. But because we're shooting green screen, I can put them on a treadmill, I can edge light them, creating a very graphic image. That was the thing that excited me most about the lighting, is I could finally put lights anywhere I wanted on the set and get the result that you want and have that sort of perfection to the images that you couldn't do on a normal set because of the limitations of framing and light spill. You take the bathroom, for instance. A stylistic thing you would do in cartooning is to take the tile and make it black with a white grout when it's in a shadow area. And when it gets to a bright area, you would reverse it, making it a white tile with a black grout. Now, unless we went in and hand-painted everything this way on a real set, we really couldn't get this effect. It's not realistic, but to your mind's eye, it would work. You have these layers of unreality being presented as the world that you're in when you're in Sin City. People ask why the different colors of blood. Well, you got the Yellow Bastard blood, which was really blue blood when we photographed it. The white blood, which Frank would use sometimes, like in The Big Fat Kill, when Jackie Boy's arm gets cut off, he had drawn it with white blood spewing everywhere. And then sometimes I chose red blood. I found that when Bruce Willis or Mickey Rourke were bloody, it just looked like their faces were dirty. And when you want the audience to feel the pain that they're going through, you want to see that blood. So I experimented with, in post-production, I tried bringing up just the red, and it worked much better. It had this effect of being almost like a color close-up, where all you saw was the red. And that was a really dramatic effect. Somewhere in the middle of shooting, I started telling Frank that I might be pulling more color into the movie as I found necessary in editing, and explained one of the ideas would be taking Goldie and making her gold. And Frank said, oh, you're using color as a weapon. I like that. So that sort of became the idea for the film, was to use color when needed if it was going to highlight an idea or create a different abstraction or concept. So how do you go about doing something like this? Well, years ago, I started my own effects company to not only develop ideas that I had, but also to finish out shots if need be. Any of the bigger conceptual ideas or stunt shots with cars, I had my guys work out first. And then once we had it blocked out, I would then turn it over to the other effects houses to finish. Things that needed a lot more development in a look, I would do with my guys. But that's how you get to make something that's very new and very different, is and experimental, is by having your own effects company. It's just a necessary thing these days. The other way to save money on a movie like this, and because we're shooting green screen, is to shoot very fast. And the actors love moving that fast. The first day on green screen is always the hardest.
Can I just go home, please? Can I just go back to Los Angeles, please? Fucking great. I don't want to go to school.
Excuse me, miss. I was wondering if you could help me. I'm looking for somebody.
After that, they all get in the swing of things.
8 long fucking years, you fucking brat!
So long, Junior. Been a pleasure.
Someone like Brittany Murphy was there for only one day, even though she's in all 3 stories. For instance, she never met Bruce Willis. This sequence here is very odd. Mickey Rourke walks into the bar. There's Jessica Alba, which she was there a whole month after Mickey was gone. He sits down at a table and he's served by Brittany Murphy, who shot one of the last days of shooting, long after Mickey was gone. Then she turns and sees Dwight, who wasn't there at this point when we had shot this. We'd shot this about a week before she showed up. And she serves him a drink. And then Dwight looks over at Mickey, and it's why I'm my own editor, because you don't have to create a little roadmap for yourself. You've got it all in your head, and you can just shoot very quickly and efficiently, because time is of the essence in something like this, with this many actors in this type of movie. Mickey Rourke never met Jessica Alba, so in a scene like this, I'm reading off camera with Mickey, and we put a stand in there for him to look at as an eye line. When Jessica arrived to shoot her scenes for The Yellow Bastard, we picked up these shots from Marv's story. I would sit there and read with Jessica, and then we'd put them together in post. Mickey Rourke and Rutger Hauer never met. We shot Mickey's material first, and I showed that to Rutger when he arrived about 8 months after we filmed Mickey. And I did this one shot of them together, which I put a camera move on in post to make it look a little more handheld, to make it feel like they were actually in frame together, but again, they never met. Believe it or not, Elijah Wood and Mickey Rourke never met each other either, even though they're having whole entire fight sequences together. Elijah Wood is fighting with Mickey's double, and Mickey is fighting with Elijah's double. And because I'm the editor, and because a lot of this is drawn out already in the books, I can take a shot like this of Mickey getting kicked in the face, have Mickey's real face, and then 4 weeks later have Elijah Wood come in and throw his foot into frame. We had some special effects makeup in this movie. The Yellow Bastard, Mickey Rourke is Marv. But there's something else I wanted to try. If you look at these shots of Elijah, there's something really creepy and odd about them. Besides keeping his eyes light in the darkness, you don't really notice until you see what it looked like before. This is him before, and then this is him after. I just did a little bit of a change on his shift on his chin. He has a very recognizable chin. And I wanted him, when he was in silhouette especially, not to be so recognizable. And he liked the result quite a bit. About a fourth of the shots I did this on. Because our green screen was so small, shots like this that seem very dynamic, where the camera cranes up and over and around and spinning around the car, we don't really move the camera. We just move the car. There isn't room to move the camera on that green screen. We need a 360-degree green screen. Since we just have a small area, we have wires attached to the car, and we start by having the car facing the green screen and then spin it towards camera. And all we're doing with the camera, if you notice, is we're booming the camera up and then booming it back down. We're not climbing over the car at all. But once you put the background in, it appears that way. And since I've shot so many movies on green screen now, you just automatically start thinking backwards like this. So if we ever had an extra idea, like Frank came over at one point and said, I want to get a shot where blood hits Miho's face and she doesn't blink, because they've never done that in a samurai movie. I shot her with her eyes open, and in the same take, I had her close her eyes, and then we splattered her with blood. By doing that, I was able to keep her open eyes from previous in the take, and superimpose it over her face when the blood hits it. Watch the all green screen version. You can see what the movie looked like when we were done shooting. That's one of the special features on here. It's just the entire movie shown on green screen, and you can see what little we had to work with and how much work needs to be done later on in post. This movie was going to be so different from how regular movies were shot that I got into trouble with the DGA, who said, oh, well, co-directors can't have co-directors. It usually doesn't work. How did it work with Frank? Well, we both shared something in common. He loved his material, and I loved his material, so we didn't really want to stray from that. I really wanted to translate it directly to the screen. And if you read his books, you see that he's already a director. He was just working with paper instead of a camera. I really wanted to emulate that in the movie and make the cinematic equivalent of his book. Frank had some very specific directions sometimes, like he didn't like how this mercenary was holding his gun. It wasn't as visual or how he would have drawn it. So you see him adjusting the gun, and the guy's looking at him like, what the hell is he talking about? But of course, he's not seen what Frank's seen. So if you want to have fun, learn your technology. The technology helps push the art form and create new ideas. And learn it. It's all there in your house already. They've already created smaller versions of all these programs that you can have on your laptop. Sometimes they come on your laptop built in or on your home computer. And with digital home video cameras, you can already be doing everything that we're doing here and more. So have fun, be creative, and good luck. I'll talk to you next time. Bye. I'm not here.
Just so the old fart could hold on to some hope of having a grandson. Line, fuck.